and it should be happening anytime soon. It's taking a little time. By the way, I have to thank actually Laptop Doctor in Maidstone. I did promise them I would shout out their name. So we're live officially now. Am I a bit delayed?
I hear you.
Okay. Lovely. So hopefully it works properly.
Yeah, I received a message that it was being live streamed, so I think you're good. And then I see the little live icon. It's kind of neat. I see it on my screen. It says recording live on YouTube. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat.
Yes, it says so, live on YouTube. So
that's wonderful. Yes. It seems a bit delayed. I don't know why.
Delayed for what?
What we're talking actually, but it's been recorded anyway, so it should be fine either way. Okay, let's start. So may I just introduce our wonderful power couple at the moment. Am I hearing myself double? Let me turn the speaker down here. Is that better? So can you hear me properly?
Yes.
One moment. Okay. Lovely. Okay, wonderful. So may I introduce, we've got lovely two really influence. I can hear myself double. I'm sorry. I will try to make it more professional. It's two wonderful, great influencers in the corporate world. One, Mr. Inderjit Singh, who's head of the Canadian aviation. He operates on direct Canada Airport. He was former head of New Delhi Airport and was operating from there, where a lot of people have actually known him on a very human level. He operates in a way as an emotional intelligence expert, has written a lot of books and a lot of articles, and it's well known for his way how he deals with people in a human way all over the world. And at the same time, we've got the wonderful Dr. Charlie Cartwright as well here, who is a human influence expert and therefore also well known in the corporate world. He is the founder of the People's First Formula. Is that correct? I hope I pronounced it correctly. And yes, and therefore actually operates in the business world to create better environment in companies, to have a sustainable way where people can survive, especially during these crisis moments as well.
Thank you for having me.
Proud
it's a pleasure to be here with you both.
I'm very proud to know you, Dr. Charlie, as my dear friend.
Likewise. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better in our conversation. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. And I'm very proud to know both of you.
That's good. We scratch each other's back.
That's what we should be doing.
Okay.
For some reason, I keep hearing myself back all the time.
Yeah, you're just really good, and on this end, I don't hear any echoes or anything.
Oh, that's wonderful. I spend a lot of money on the mic, so I shouldn't be receiving any complaints on that. That's lovely. Nice to see. So wonderful. I mean, I'm so excited now to have both of you on my panel. It's such an honor actually to create this power trio as such. You know, I don't think there has been many moments where people have presented this kind of way with two really lovely personalities who have such influence in the world. And I'm loving it. So I'm quite excited in talking to you, and feel free to have a heated discussion as well. You know, we want to keep it flowing. As you know, I'm very organic. So we want to bounce off each other. So what I wanted to discuss with you is actually quite important nowadays. I think generally about post-pandemic, the crisis which are happening, people are really suffering during lockdown, and that goes all across the border, from the corporate world to the everyday life and personal life as well. You know, everybody has been affected by that. And I think in that way, it was very, very important to know and to talk to people about these things, because I have been talking on a personal level, one-to-one with clients. As you know, I'm a mind coach, psychologist, but at the same time, it would be nice to know the corporate side, but as well as on a human level, how's your life been? How are you dealing with these things? So first of all, I wanted to start with Inderjit Singh. How would it work on a corporate level, especially, as well as a human level, when you have situations like the plane which has come down for a few years ago, where you had a German pilot called Andreas Lubitz? You may have heard that incident.
Yes.
Over the Alps, where a plane from German wings was flying scheduled from Barcelona to Düsseldorf. Absolutely. And he actually kind of crashed it into these Alps. And after forensic investigation, they found out that he did suffer with mental health problems. So on a corporate world, especially when you're operating such a big airport like Canada or New Delhi before that, there must be a lot of people suffering with difficulties. There's a lot of pressure involved. And during this time now in the pandemic, it must have been even higher, because a lot of people are suffering financially as well. There's big pressure on the corporate world too. The aviation industry has been suffering a lot. You know, people could not fly. There were very reduced flights. Operational level was very reduced. Plus, you had to look at security as well. So if you could enlighten us as emotional intelligence expert as well on how it actually worked and how you managed these things.
Okay, Shafaq, I think it's a very good question you started with, because the question is related both to human level and also a corporate level, because as you very rightly said, each and every human endeavor or any business, they have all suffered. But aviation in totality has probably been hit very badly, because as you know, aviation is not a self-serving business. You know, it supports tourism, it supports trade, it supports commerce. So when we look at the totality, it's run into trillions, not billions. Just aviation, airports, airlines, and aircraft manufacturing has suffered $500 billion in just about 10 months. And these are audited figures to be verified from our websites. And the rippling effect on the other industries which I mentioned, like tourism, for instance, alone has lost 2.73 trillion, not billion, 2.73 trillion US dollars. Commerce, by air, we carry 26% of the total volume of money, you know, like in terms of high value stuff, but low volume, like diamonds or currency notes or medicine, you know, life-saving medicines, which are very, very expensive. So we carry all that by air. So 26% of the global trade is on aviation. So if you sum up everything, just in the aviation and the related industries, it runs into 6 to 7 trillion US dollars.
That's right.
So we've gone through really a very bad patch of time, but then we know that we'll come back, because there is something to support us called 9/11, for instance. If you recall, just a few years back when 9/11 happened, we all thought that everything is over. I mean, I mean, we were not there in so active during that time, almost 20 years back. But what we hear and what we know about what was happening at that time, I mean, people thought we are doomed. But then see how we bounced back in about, I think, 3 to 4 years. We bounced back. The traffic caught up. We started showing productivity. We were, in quite good. Our traffic jumped more than what it was prior to pre 9/11 period.
Yeah.
So everything went on well. So that keeps us reminding that we have to be positive while we are very practical, down to earth, hardcore professionals that we are. And we are trained. I mean, for us, crisis is not so very well welcomed, but it is something that we deal with all the time. I mean, if there is no pandemic, we have hijacking attempts, we have bomb threats. So we are mentally and physically trained to cope with all those situations. But
Right.
this particular incident that you mentioned, which happened on I distinctly remember 24th March of 2015, when the aircraft from Spain to Germany, and it was an A320 flight, which can take about 240 odd people, but there were only 144 passengers and a crew of 7 people. So they all died. And it was not after the postmortem, they found in the records that this person had mental problems.
Yeah.
The parents also later confessed that he had, but he got over it and he did not convey. You see, we have psychological tests. I'm myself a pilot. So we have the psychological test almost every year to check our mental health, our mental state and everything. But still, you can't be, because some things just happen spontaneously. I mean, you are an expert, Shafaq, in all these kind of traumas and all that.
Yeah.
You know that many a times, it's not that suicidal tendencies you are nurturing all the time. They can spark out any moment. So in this case also, because he was tested a few months back, not days back, he was found okay. So you never know, at one stage, your mind just reacts in a certain way and you go ahead and do something, and which you can't even regret later because you know more than. So all these people died, and then when all these analyses and all these courts and tribunals sat down and they found out that this was one of those instant reactions. When his co-pilot had gone outside, he was all by himself in the cockpit. Something came to his mind, which happens that, for me, it's very important that at this moment, I have nobody else in mind except Shafaq and Charlie. Because, we are interacting and we have our audience probably live watching us. So we owe that much to them that we don't digress and think of anything else, but only the 3 of us, what we are discussing, and our lovely participants. So those things do happen, but I won't attribute it to something for Andreas, the gentleman, the pilot who died, the pilot who suffered from mental illness. It was there all the time. His records later on showed that it was all there by them, but they were suppressed. And this is exactly which leads to suicidal tendencies. When you have your emotions suppressed in your mind all the time, that's why we say, let go, open out, have a confidant, have somebody, or talk to the walls if nobody else, and let the steam get out of your system. So that is one thing which we learned, as you mentioned, emotional intelligence. I'm no expert, like you said, in emotional intelligence. It was just when I was doing advanced management course in Oxford, we had a choice to take an elective subject. So I opted for emotional intelligence because at that time I was interacting in foreign governments, and I was posted in Africa with a lot of people and the media. So, here we can speak a little, we are friends, so we can take liberties of probably digressing a little bit. But when you are reporting at a major airport, you have to have very chosen words, you have to weigh what you say, because media, as it is, they blow things out of proportion. So I thought that would help me in my career as I grow, to how to deal with circumstances, how to deal with people, which is very, very important, and the environment that you're functioning in. So this is in sum total that how emotional intelligence helped me in many occasions to take the right decision at the right time. And that perhaps is the first and foremost requirement of a leader. I mean, a leader is meant to take decisions. So, because on his decision would depend the course of action which other will follow. So those kind of courses only make us, our minds strong to take a balanced decision. What is important is equilibrium, like a leveled kind of a mind, which is not leaning more towards IQ, not leaning more towards EQ, but a very judicious cocktail or a mix of IQ and EQ and circumstantial. Depends the situation. You have to be emotionally intelligent, be emotionally intelligent. If you have to be conventional intelligence, which we call IQ, then do that and just mix and match and see how things move on. The whole idea is for a leader to take a decision and then implement it and own it. That's most important. I think amongst the three things that I mentioned, to take a decision, implement, and then further own it, because the accountability lies with you. Whatever be the shape of the bottle, the bottleneck is always on the top. So we have to remember that we are at the top. I mean, when I say we, meaning all those people who are at the helms of the affair, they are the leaders. So they have to be very, very careful in what they decide. So, and then as we go in crisis management, we'll share some more crises that we have gone through, not only on the work front. Life is, it depends on how you look at it, but we have crises all the time going on. How you conquer them, how you come on top of them is your ingenuity. Or like you say that, well, you have now arrived, you understand what life is all about. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That is so beautifully said, actually. As a leader, as you said, take a decision, implement, and then own it. Take accountability for whatever results will be there. And that is so important. What distinguishes a follower from a leader itself, from someone who's actually not just helping themselves, but also taking responsibility for someone else. And that is really important, which is why I mentioned earlier that if you go to a doctor, for instance, or you reach out to a consultant, to a specialist, you're actually reaching out for help. So you're not actually reaching out for the consultant to be confused itself, or to be frustrated with something, or to be just be flustered. You expect them to have a level of efficiency, to have knowledge, and to have actually the safety or network or something which they provide to you, whether you feel comfortable. And that's so important. And that, as I said, distinguish from a leader to a follower. There's a lot of followers around, but there's not many leaders around. You can call yourself a leader, but at the same time, to manage a crisis, for instance, in this incident, you have to take ownership, you have to take accountability. And that's really beautifully said. I mean, whilst talking that, Dr. Charlie, I'm aware that, the corporate world is very similar to each other. Like Inderjit has actually explained, that the corporate world has to deal with a lot of crisis anyway. So they have to be prepared for certain situations. But at the same time, I would say, how did you actually deal with the likes of the pandemic itself, which is something globally spread? It's not just on a local level. It's not just for a country or a specific area. Everybody was affected by that. So on a human level, as well as, I think we discussed the human level maybe a bit later, but at the moment on a business level, on a corporate level, how did you manage all these things? And what difficulties or challenges did you come across?
Wow, that's a really deep question. So yes, it's been a very challenging time financially because of so much business disruption and just the unknown, right? That there's been so many unknowns. There's been so many changes, of course, from government officials. Because in the United States, each state gets to operate independently. There's not been a lot of continuity between the 50 states. And so last night I'm in Kansas. And so last night I had dinner with friends on the Missouri side, which is a short drive, 30 minutes. Well, on the Missouri side, you have the masks on, right? But on the Kansas side, you don't. So you've got to know where you're at and negotiate all that. So it's been really challenging. And I think companies weren't prepared, right? I don't know that anyone was prepared for a pandemic to last for this duration. I think people could have managed for a month or 2 months or even a quarter, but no one imagined that it would be this extended. And so companies really had to pivot quickly, and some have done so very well and some have not done so well. And that comes down to, as previously mentioned, it comes down to leadership. So I think that we talk about emotional intelligence and how we deal with crisis and things like that. How we're dealing with crisis at home is very similar to how we're going to deal with crisis at work, because it's all connected. So for me, it's just been a learning process for sure, and looking at, how can I adapt? What can I do today? How can I set myself up for the future? How can I help others? That's how Dashcam Wisdom was born, through this crisis. The Dashcam Wisdom that I'm known for would not be in existence without this crisis. So it's an interesting thing that I think when I've talked to different leaders in corporations, the people that are trying to get through it struggle. The people that are getting into it prosper. And so waiting for it to stop raining is not a great strategy. We have to deal with the rain, right? We have to deal with the weather. We have to deal with what's going on. And the more that we walk into it and step towards it, the better our outcomes will be, because we've accepted that, hey, this is the new reality. People don't like to hear that word, but it's true. It's a new reality. There's certain things in our world that are forever changed. And so the individuals as well as the organizations that are getting into it versus trying to get through it are actually thriving in the middle of a pandemic, which is pretty amazing when you think about it.
Right. Sorry, was you still saying something, or did you finish?
Yeah, no, those are my thoughts.
No, that is wonderful. And as you rightly said, is how you manage crisis in your personal situation, in your personal world. That's how you would manage crisis at corporate world or at the business world as well. It's absolutely right, because you have to be able to be that personality. You have to be able to be the character itself to manage crisis. I had a podcast a few months ago where I was invited by someone who was such as in America, Dr. Charlie may know, that kind of group as such, who call themselves preppers. And these are people who deal with situations just to prepare for any kind of crisis situation, such as earthquake, natural disasters, but it could also be other things. But he actually explained to me that he was not from the extreme level who would go into bunkers and just hide there. He just likes to prepare. So he calls himself prepper. He's part of the prepper group. And he was actually investigating about my clips on social media. As you know, I'm everywhere at the moment. I'm from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to LinkedIn, everywhere, to YouTube as well. So he was investigating about me and finding out that I want to talk to her. Whatever I was actually reflecting, he did like that, and he wanted a psychologist on his channel. So he interviewed me about crisis management. It was very, very interesting to see, but it was more about, on a level, how do you deal with personal situations in crisis? And he was mentioning about very extreme cases, such as having like the pandemic, but in a way that the world would be destroyed. What you see in Hollywood films with dead bodies outside and difficult situations. So if you're in that kind of situation, what would you do? How would you save your family? What would you prioritize? How would you take them to a safe place? So as I was talking to him, he did really like my responses, because at the same time, he was asking me, is it okay to panic? Because a normal person would panic. But how would you come out of that mindset and then think ahead and actually safeguard yourself and the family? What would you do? So I explained to him in the same way like you two have so beautifully explained, that when you are in a crisis situation, you wouldn't know that before. You have to know at that time when you're challenged by these kind of situations, which are very unexpectedly, how you would react, whether you would react as a leader who takes charge, or you would react as a follower and become nervous or become just challenged by the situation, wouldn't know how you would be solution focused. And that's the times when I notice, especially from my personal experiences, that I have been very solution focused from the beginning on, no matter what challenges lies ahead, that I'm always solution focused. And instead of focusing on the problem itself, however traumatic that might be, I focus on what can I do, how can I achieve a solution from that, whether plan A works, plan B works, plan C works, and that seems to be working very quickly in my brain. My brain is somehow wired with that. So I explained to him, well, the remorse and the emotional feelings, which was another question, that might come after that situation happens. You have to put that aside and you have to then prioritize what can you do? How can you find a solution to that? And I think that is very important to know, that how you manage this trail of pathway as such, and how you can also manage your emotional state as well, because that is very important too. Because once you pass that challenge and you've done what you've done, you come to a decision, you've saved everybody's life, for instance, or that situation, how you actually manage yourself. Because you need to be able to process this information as well, and you need to allow yourself to go through these emotions. And that is something where I wanted to come to both of you, the question, you can talk to each other about that or just express whatever you're feeling. It's part of emotional intelligence as well, that we know how to manage these kind of emotions, because it's natural to have them. It's nothing unnatural. It's very natural to be wanting to cry or wanting to be frustrated or having anger or feeling panic afterwards, because suddenly your brain starts realizing what actually happens and you start comprehending. Yes, I'm putting the question out to both of you. How do you manage the post-traumatic incident within yourself?
Okay, sure. Shall I go ahead, or Dr. Charlie?
Go ahead.
Okay. Shafaq, before we see how to cope up with crisis, we need to know what type of crisis are there. You see, there are several types of crisis, but when I was writing this book, which I think I mentioned to you earlier, which has been globally released in London on 30th of June, called Tough Roads Create Tough People. So I wanted to understand whatever little knowledge I had, but then I have to understand as to what is tough roads and what are tough people, and how tough roads create tough people. So in that process, I did some research on crisis management, which is part of our curriculum when we are at work. But then work is not everything. Life also is part. Your life comes first, work comes later. Okay. So there are actually precisely three types of crisis. If you were to, one is the developmental crisis, other is the existential crisis, and third is the situational crisis. Like tsunamis and earthquakes and air crash and all are situational. Okay, they just happen. There is no forewarning, maybe a few hours in case of tsunami, or earthquake, no warning at all. And in air crashes, not a split second warning, it just happens. Okay. So in development crisis is how when, as you were growing, there were a few things getting inside your mind. And you have grown, but those things are still in your mind. You may like to say forget and forgive, but it's not possible. So those things affect, and those things evoke those crises at times. And when you mention about this pilot, it's quite possible that some childhood memory may have come, or something that happened 4 years back, he thought of it, and suddenly thought that it's not worth living now anymore. And then he went and hit the mountains. So that is the developmental crisis. Then comes the existential crisis, which is like inner conflicts related to life, purpose, direction, and spirituality. Many a times we say, what am I here for? Where I'm heading for? What's my destination? So when you find yourself in a very confused state of mind, those situations come where you want to get rid of yourself. You don't like yourself anymore, and you say it's not worth living. And then there is this midlife crisis, which is also the part of existential crisis. So people, when they touch 40 or go beyond, they go through this crisis where they feel in their minds that maybe they are not more desirable, for instance, or not very much likable. And then they feel that there is something missing in life. And maybe I can find that in afterlife, in the subconscious mind. And then they go in for such tendencies. So that could possibly, but then there are positive aspects also. Once you realize what is midlife crisis and you turn it into positivity, you would start loving it. I mean, then you say, wow, I mean, I am what I am. Let me accept what I am and have the best of it. And a lot of people have done that through various ways of doing it. And the most important being control on your emotions. And third, of course, is the situational crisis. So once we know what kind of crisis we are dealing with, which only you would know, or I mean, when I say you, the person who is going through, or a psychotherapist like you who would study the person and say, if you are not aware, I think you are going through this, and let's find a solution for you. So once you know, you have to first diagnose, and then you treat the person. And as far as definitions are concerned, I think there are millions of definitions about crisis, like it can be a time of intense difficulty or danger. But the best definition, which I thought, which really hits the nail on the head is, he says, crisis is a perception or an experience. One is an experience, like pandemic, for instance, is an experience we are going through. In your part of the world, there is no pandemic. I think so. So you are where? You are in?
Yes. Are you asking me?
Yes, please. Yes. I said in the
UK.
Part,
well, we passed. I mean, the pandemic is still there, but we passed the lockdown situation.
Oh, I thought you are from Venus, because John Gray told me that you are from Venus.
That was a good one.
That
was a good one. That was absolutely a good one.
Because I and Charlie are from Mars, but I thought you are from Venus. Anyway, if you are from UK, then I am sure you know what pandemic is. So this pandemic has actually compounded the problems. Crisis has always been there. Some sort of a crisis we are all the time going through. But this pandemic, for instance, has compounded that crisis, and it's become the confusion compounded, actually. So this definition, I thought, is very meaningful. I'll repeat. It says crisis is a perception or experience of an event or situation as an intolerable difficulty that exceeds the person's current resources and coping mechanism.
So and that is so beautifully said. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So it is the coping mechanism, something which may sound too big a crisis to you, may be just very ordinary for somebody else who has got the coping mechanisms made very strong. Okay. So like you do physical exercise to strengthen your body muscles, you do mental exercise to strengthen your mental muscles. You see, it may sound a little hypothetical, but that's the fact. I mean, repeatedly go, instead of running away from crisis, if it is there, face it, fight it out. So you get on top of the crisis, and then the crisis is scared to come to you rather than you running away from crisis. So you see, that's the whole idea of making your mind, at the core of our existence is the mind. It's not body or your physique or whatever. It is your mind. How strong is your mind? I'm talking for men. So we don't like to be termed beautiful or whatever. But the point is that if somebody has a good, strong mind, you say, well, he's a complete man. Okay. Because he's got a good mind, he's got good thinking, he's got a good power on himself. So in mental health terms, a crisis refers not necessarily to a traumatic situation or event, but to a person's reaction to an event. Okay? So in physics, they say there is an equal reaction to an action. I won't say in our human level, those physics formulas don't work. You see, because in life, most of the time, 10% is the action, 90% is a reaction. So if 90% reaction is positive, you are good. If 10% reaction, 90% in bad reaction, then you really need to go through a psychotherapist like yourself. So that is how we decide who needs what. And there was one thing which I found was that in mental health, they say in the change, the way you look at the things and the things you look at would change. Change is inevitable. So let's accept that there has to be a change. We are going through a crisis situation in the pandemic. Accept the change and see how you can change the change now. You see, from normal life, it became a little different life. It was a change. Now we have to get back to normal. That again is a change. Which change? That change was not in our control. It happened. Nature or the universal forces brought it. Maybe our faults. When we had witnessed 2 or 3 such viruses in the past, why didn't we learn our lessons? Why didn't our medical profession got into the details of viruses and found a solution? Why did we just got over those things like SARS, Ebola, and MERS and started rejoicing that it's all over, it will never come again? Did we know that it will come? And where is the guarantee that it will not come again?
Yeah.
Okay. Today it is COVID-20, in the COVID-19 we call it. God forbids there could be COVID-25, there would be COVID-29, COVID-32. We don't know what is in store. So in our management parlance, we always say that be prepared for the worst. Look forward to the best, but also be prepared for the worst. Okay, in our aircraft simulation studies, that's what we are taught. That they would put you in a simulator and out of the 4 engines, 1 engine will be cut off, then second will be cut off, then the third they would put you in a situation where now you are all left without any power with you in the air. How would you survive? And that famous example of the pilot who landed, we were talking about what wrong happened, what good happened. This person who knew that if he lands at New York airport, everything will be devastated. He landed on Hudson River and saved 300 lives on a Boeing 747 and became kind of a celebrity in that country and world over. So it's how you get over the crisis situation, I think, is more important than the crisis itself. That's to sum up, that is what's important. And Chinese, there is a definition in Chinese also that it is the Chinese word crisis actually is a combination of danger and opportunity. So danger we have gone through, but it's an opportunity to learn. If we know that after any crisis, we learn something out of it, we have learned this time and we have become more resilient. I mean, otherwise we would be sitting and crying and not discussing, because we are resilient. We are strong enough to say, okay, let's face it. Now you tell me, Shafaq, tell me, Dr. Charlie, how can we face it? I mean, that's the whole intention of meeting and discussing it out. So I think that is the positive, what we have got through this pandemic.
And you have summed up absolutely everything which is included in the Shafaq effect. Absolutely everything. This is my package which I offer to my clients. It's it's very solution focused, and you have actually very correctly said, and it's scientifically explained as well, backed with research. Without you being a psychologist, if I listened to you, I would have thought you are a graduate psychologist. So very well, very, very well explained. It is absolutely about how we actually manage the crisis, how we manage our emotions. That's where emotional intelligence comes about as well. Just being stuck in a situation, an event, or experience will not actually bring us further. It will not create or solve a problem. It will always linger within us, which is why I mentioned Andreas Lubitz as well, the pilot who crashed the plane. Because if you're in a state of confusion, of disaster, in a situation which had happened in the past, and not being able to manage that, not being able to come out of that, because you can never escape, as you said. And that's what I try to teach my clients as well. You can never escape your memories.
Yes.
You can manage them. You can allow them to come into your life, to enter your life and to leave your life. But you need to know how. You can never escape them because they will always follow you.
Yes, and I'll just take another 30 seconds to substantiate what I mentioned to you, because we were talking of Andreas early in the video, in your opening remarks. What is also important for a good leader is to switch on and switch off. You see, when you are objective, like you said, objectively oriented towards something, you are in a flight, your destination is Germany. From Spain, you are flying into Germany. Nothing else should come in your mind except your objective at that moment. So what happens, what goes generally wrong with a lot of people is that while they are doing something, they are thinking of their past. I know it's right in the beginning, we said it's very difficult to forget the past, but like once you mentioned to me in my previous interview that you have gone through a lot of trauma, and see how all that is there in the back of your mind, but you left it behind and you are progressing. Every day we hear about theshafaqeffect doing this, theshafaqeffect doing that, more and more people following you, and also you are very progressive. So one should know, because I read somewhere that while you are driving, you can't be looking at the rear view mirror all the time.
That's right.
Otherwise, you won't be able to drive forward. If your focus is always on the two rear view mirrors or the one you have on top, and you're all the time looking back, how would you be possibly driving forward? So, you have to shun off those negative feelings, find a cure for that. That, okay, if I was teased when I was in college, why was I teased? Was it my extra weight? Was it my stupidity? Or was it my lack of sense of humor? Yeah. Because, all those things, what was I lacking? And I say, oh, I think I was that, which is not the norm. So how do I get rid of that? So the moment you get rid of that, one negativity is gone. Or I was very shy. I was not able to speak to somebody. So now I'll say I'll take a speaking course from Shafaq, try to know how to charm people like you do. So that's the way to progress, I guess. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, I would say in general, as you said, how to charm people. Half of the work is done when you charm people. I think everything else just follows. It makes it so much easier.
Yes, and yes. You have to tell us how to do it.
That's most probably my secret. So I'm sure you're very well in that, Inderjit, especially Inderjit. I know you're master of these things.
Thank you very much. I feel very good today having met you again. When is the third episode?
We should be arranging that right now. Absolutely. Dr. Charlie, what is your opinion about that? What do you think?
Yeah, Inderjit made such great points, and I think I would add to that and really reiterate what he said is our past traumas and challenges and disappointments are what prepare us for the challenges of the future. And a lot of times we don't voluntarily go through those things, but when we get from them and learn from them, then it comes into play at an unexpected time, and such as today, right? And I've had so many job interviews over the years, and some companies put you through a very intense, psychological profile. And there's one company, a couple of companies in particular, and it was like 400 questions and it took a couple of hours to get through it all. And I've done that maybe 3 times. And each time when they reviewed the results, they said, hey, here's how you respond when things are going well, right? And what amazed us is when under crisis, you respond this way. And there's no difference. But it's because of how I grew up, having so much trauma and childhood at home and outside of home. And as difficult as those times were, it really galvanized my resolve. And so I'm able to stay calm during stressful situations and look around. And I remember my grandfather, he would try to instill things in me at different times. And it was just interesting when I look back at it now, because he would just we'd be sitting together and he'd just lean toward me and tell me something. And I remember one of the things he said was in stressful times, and he was a World War II veteran and had served in Europe and the European theater, been injured in combat and all these things, and saw so much trauma. And he said, hey, you have to really get calm and relax. He said, and that allows you to think. He said, if you're upset, if you're angry, if you're feeling all these things, he said, it really clouds your ability to think. And literally, it's been life-saving for me in a couple of different occasions that, hey, this is the time to be calm. And I used to think about it, but now it's a natural occurrence. And so we've all had challenges in our life. And so leaning into those allows us to be more resilient during these times. And then knowing too, that as Inderjit spoke, we've all been through trauma. There's always crisis. There's always something that we've had to overcome. Now we're being tasked with bringing all of that experience together to bear on our current situation. And when we overcome this, then we'll be better prepared for the future. And there's a book, I think this book should be required reading for every human being. And I'm sure you probably have both read it, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And that book it's hard to read, of course. I could only read maybe 2 or 3 pages at a time. However, it really puts things into focus. And he really talked about how strong your why is. And he said, if your why is strong enough, you can get through any how or what, and that you are striving to achieve this. You're looking forward to this why. And we all have a different why we do things, why we're here. Ultimately, I know the 3 of us, we're wanting to positively impact the world and other people as much and as many as we can during our time here. It's a very, very straightforward why. And then the execution of that is our daily thoughts and actions. So another key point too is being in our wise mind, right? So we've got our emotions and all these things. We've got our intelligence, our IQ, but where those, as Inderjit mentioned, where those coalesce is our wise mind, and really being intentional about staying in our wise mind during these challenging times. And then we can more clearly see how to navigate. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, have incidents where we're upset or frustrated or even feel fear. But that courage allows us to overcome our fear because we all feel it. And so that's fine. It's normal. It's natural. But it's the overcoming of those things is where the glory is.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's lovely, lovely, lovely said, lovely explained. It's the overcoming of things. And we're coming back to this, which is why I'm guessing we 3 have kind of on that level quite similar minds, because it comes back to the solution focused minds. It doesn't go into fixating on the problem itself, because as you rightfully said, Dr. Charlie, anybody faces trauma. It could be as little as large as it wants, but in some form of way, we do face stress, we do face trauma, we do face anxiety, and we don't have to suffer with any mental health condition to do so. It's just human. It's just life in what we're living in. And everybody perceives, as you rightfully said, Inderjit, our perception individually of stress, of crisis, of trauma is very different to each other, where some can tolerate a lot more a lot more crisis, a lot more trauma, a lot more anxiety as such, a stressful situation, and others may not. And that's where the difference then lies in becoming a good leader, sustainable leader, and be just someone who may have just a title, but is not capable in doing so. And, no matter in what situation you're in what position you're in, whether you're the head of operational aviation, or Dr. Charlie is a very, very quite strong level of consultant forming businesses as such, sustaining businesses. Even if you were for instance, manager of a restaurant, for instance, you would have very similar things, maybe in a smaller level, but you would have very similar things to manage. So how you manage these situations, how you manage that on a human level, on a personal level, on a corporate level, on a business level, that's what counts. And as you rightfully said, Dr. Charlie, it's the why. We have to hold on to the why. Then we can deal and manage with a house and with whatever comes in our way. And it's very, very important to identify these things, because we often live with fear. And that is another point which I wanted to talk about, in that sense, that a lot of people actually are bound with their fears. They may have all this potential, which we can talk about. And many people have approached me saying, whatever you're telling us, we know it already. I'm aware that you know that already, because I haven't invented the wheel. I'm just repeating things which are there from since mankind has been born. You know, it's not something new which I'm telling people, but it's what you take out of that, how you actually change these things and what you do with that. That is important. You know, you can know about all these things, you can be aware of that, but if you don't put it into action, nothing is going to happen. Your life is going to stay miserable. Your situation is going to stay miserable. Or whatever you're going through, you wouldn't be able to manage. So how are you implementing these things into that? And how are you overcoming the fear? Have a heated discussion, both of you. I'll join in. What are your thought process about that?
Okay. Shall I? Just
start. Whoever wants to start. And
so this is an interesting one, and I have a different view on fear. It kind of flies in the face of traditional thinking. And I hear so many people speak about fear as if it's evil, right? And they ignore it, try to get away from it, all these things and overcome it. And so it reminds me of a quote. This is my favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln. It was after the Civil War, and he was giving a speech, and he was talking about reconciling relationships between the North and the South and bringing this union together. And a woman questioned him in the audience and said, "Hey, are you asking us to embrace our enemies?" And his response was amazing. He said, "Madam, when I turn my enemy into my friend, is my enemy not destroyed? Not overcome,
yes.
Destroyed, or defeated. Destroyed, because if we defeat an enemy, they'll come back, okay? Fight us again and fight us again and fight us again. But if our enemy is destroyed, it's gone. More importantly, when our enemy becomes our friend, it's an ally. And so fear is there for our greater good. Our fear has been with us our entire life to help us. But if we don't have a proper relationship with fear, it becomes adversarial because we're mistreating it. And so fear looks at us and says, "Hey, why aren't you listening to me? Why are you disrespecting me? You know what? I'm just going to yell a little louder because you don't hear me." And it gets louder and louder and louder. But when we embrace our fear, when fear becomes our friend, now it's an ally pointing out. And so the acronym that I have for fear is a friend explaining approaching risk. It's explaining approaching risk to say, hey, Dr. Charlie, it snowed last night. There's ice on the road. I think you're driving too fast. Well, no, you know what? I'm driving 10 miles under the speed limit. I have new snow tires on, and they do a great job of maintaining these roads. Fear's quiet now, right? Fear's quiet now. And so when we embrace it and listen to what it's telling us, then it helps us prepare for events. I remember talking to my son about this when he was in high school. And matter of fact, it was middle school, and he adopted the lessons and went through high school, college, everything very well, but he was struggling at this time. And I said, what happens when you walk into a test that you're not prepared for? You don't feel confident. You haven't done the work. Fear is screaming at you, telling, you should have been studying weeks ago. Now you're going to fail. All these things, right? It's screaming at you as you walk in the room because you're not prepared for this test. Now, fast forward, you've prepared for the test. You've done all the reading. You've done all the study. You walk in. What's fear saying to you? Nothing. It's quiet because you are prepared. So fear helps us prepare. So I really feel like when you make that paradigm shift, it's life-changing. So that's my view. I'm sorry to go out of sequence, Inderjit, but I had to get that. I had to get on my soapbox.
Excellent. No, I think
that's lovely. Absolutely. No. Don't apologize for anything. That meant to be a free-flowing conversation. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. I think you, Dr. Charlie, you have done a great job by explaining so beautifully about this concept of fear and the outcome of it. I think I like most is what you mentioned is that if you're at a war with an enemy, today you have won. So you have just suppressed. In fact, you have in a way challenged the enemy to come prepared stronger little later in, say, a few years. So it's not all over. It is just that you have shelved it for some time and you are rejoicing, and he'll catch you at the moment when you are really rejoicing and you are relaxed. That's the time he's going to pounce on you. And I think European Union is a very good example. Let's not get back to First World War and Second World War. All those things were not really required, but it's happened, so we got to live with it. But European Union, which is a recent phenomena, is a great thing. I mean, all these countries were at war with one another. Then suddenly they realized that it's good to be together. And see, now as one composite European Union, they are doing better. The trade is gone up. The interconnectivity is better. People don't feel different when they go from one country to another country, just crossing the borders. No need, no restrictions about visas and all that. So life has become much simpler. Coming back to fear, I have a take on it that earlier we had the fear of the unknown. We always used to live with what if that happens and what if that happens, and maybe it would never happen. So it was the fear of the unknown, which is very bad, than the fear of the known. Because fear of the known, like pandemic, we know how to tackle with it.
That's absolutely right. Did you finish just now? I didn't want to interrupt you.
I think he froze.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was still talking, and I think he froze. He's frozen on my screen, so I'm sure his connection might have gotten interrupted there.
Let's just see. Let's just give him a bit of time. Maybe we can just continue as such. Let's just continue, Dr. Charlie. Let me just go back onto the live stream. There we go. I think we lost him just now. I'm sure he will come back in a minute. Don't worry. Yeah. It will be fine.
He was making a great point there. And
continue.
It's just such a great conversation, though, because so many people struggle with this. And when they turn around and say, well, why am I struggling with this? I need to embrace this. And then it literally is a life-altering event. I remember there was a lady I met. I was in Canada, actually, in Toronto, and I had given a talk. I was there for training, and we were doing a conference, and it was over 2 days. But one of my segments, I gave a presentation about fear.
Yeah.
And after she came the next day and said, this is the first time in 10 years that I've driven on the highway. She said, I was so fearful that I'd take all these side roads and it would take me 2 hours to get to some place. It should have taken 20 minutes. And she said, I had fear in the passenger seat, and I had the conversation as I drove, and it was fine. And she was freed of that. And that was just such an amazing, for her, she's like, do you know how much time I spend driving because I'm fearful of the highway? And then this just freed her up. And that's just a small example. There's so many, it's scalable, right? When we really embrace that relationship, and because it's a part of us, and we were all given that gift innately to help us survive. And it keeps us from doing silly things, right? That will put our life and limb at risk. Like, hey, I'm not gonna step close to the edge of that cliff. I'm not gonna drive 180 kilometers per hour. I'm not gonna do some of these things because it's not wise, right? So I love the conversation about that because it can be so freeing for people.
No, absolutely. I love it as well. It's a lot of things which you've rightly explained, that people are seeing fear as the evil thing, as the negative thing, where it is actually a part of us. We can't escape that. But at the same time, it helps us to be aware of things. And how you embrace things, it's much more important. That's what I try to teach or train my clients into that as well during my program, that it's not important what you have gone through. Yes, it is important, but it's not as significant as how you manage all these things, how you embrace that. I always say in my posts as well, very much about this, is when you have experiences, these experiences you cannot escape. So you have no choice in looking at them if you want to evolve, if you want to progress from there. And the way how you progress is you look at opportunities. What have I learned from these experiences? And that is embracing the fear, because you're facing these challenges, you're facing these memories, and you're then trying to make sense of that. What have I learned from these things? Not to blame someone else, or not to blame the situation or person or whatever has happened, or to yourself as well, to feel in a form of guilt. Find out what have you learned from that and how you can apply it into your present, how you can create changes into that, how you can create changes within yourself and within your environment. That's how you progress from this. And that is part of fear as well, because fear is awareness as such, where people misconceive and misunderstand what actually fear means. It's a form of threat mechanism which actually safeguards us if you use it in the right way.
Yes. It's not meant to cripple us.
No.
It really isn't. And to your point, when we use it the right way, it's one of the best friends we have.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And it takes so much stress away from you having another friend. And especially a friend that's as powerful as fear.
No, absolutely. That's what it is. Sorry, I'm just texting while you're talking as well, Inderjit again, to join in case if we get confused about what actually happened. Please join in again. Join in again. Lovely. Okay, we'll see what he does now. But yes, no, I just thought it all comes together and inclines with crisis management itself, because these are all elements of that. If you cannot manage fear, if you cannot manage the situation itself, if you cannot manage the experience, the event, challenges, you wouldn't be able to manage anything. It's all part of crisis management. And I'm sure you, in your line of work, you would have dealt with that a lot, especially which you mentioned earlier about, going through job situations and applying for jobs. And maybe you would have even had possibly less consultancy roles because of the pandemic going on. And what comes with that as well is then a financial burden, because our bills don't stop, they continue as such. We have families to
Right.
feed, and we have a mortgage to pay, and we have food which we want to eat. So all these kind of things are so important. I mean, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure you would have similar situations as well, where you think sometimes you're not getting enough work, or you're maybe getting a lot of work, but it's not well paid, because you have to now manage it in a different way, because people are suffering as well as yourself. So how do you deal with that? This is another thing which I wanted to now talk to you about on a human level. How did you, whatever you would like to be comfortable with talking about it, how did you manage crisis in all these different ways and forms in your personal life?
Yes. So, and you're speaking specifically during the pandemic?
Yes, because I think before that, it's situational of anybody, anybody could be affected. But at the moment, I think specifically for everybody on that level of the pandemic, because it affects so many people, I just think it's very important to talk about that, because a lot of people have been actually suffering and don't know how to come out of these situations.
Yes, it's so challenging. And so what I will say for sure is that all of the skill that I've acquired during my time here, I've used all of it. All of it. Okay. So there's nothing I haven't reserved my ace in the hole or anything like that. I've used all of my skills at different times during this time, whether it's stress management, anger management, relationship. There's so many things. And I remember getting angry, right? When all of my schedule was canceled within, I think, 36-hour period. I had a whole year of work canceled that I had spent years getting to that level. And I remember getting angry, and I gave myself about 5 minutes to get angry. This is not right. This is not fair. All the things. Then I said, okay, this is not how it ends for me. This is not how I'm going out. I'm going to figure this out. And it's taken time because it's fluid. It's changing. And people were like, well, why didn't you just go virtual? I did go virtual. I think we locked down on a Monday and I went virtual platform on Tuesday. Well, my clients didn't go virtual because they weren't, what's Zoom? What's Microsoft Teams? They didn't know. And now everyone knows, but back then no one knew. And then we kept hearing, well, 30 days. And another 30 days and another 30 days. And so everyone was waiting for things to go back to normal. Then about 6 months in, people were like, well, we better start figuring this out. And then things started to slowly come in, 9 months, 12 months. Here we are, 18 months, and there's still been this large transition. And now re-engaging with some prospects and different things, but it's taken time. And so really having to lean on my faith. I'm a spiritual person, and I'm not someone that touts one religion over another. I don't believe in that. I believe in what the Dalai Lama said. He said, God has no religion. And I believe that. Okay. And so it's our relationship with the Creator. So that's been important for me. I think, everyone has their right to their opinion, of course, but I think when you look at nature, just all the laws, astrophysics in particular, it's so precise. It's so precise. For that to be randomly created by a big bang is just nonsensical to me. So that's been huge. And then the friends that I have, leaning into those relationships and vice versa. I've had friends that I've talked to and helped through stressful times. And then for me, I've received so many encouraging phone calls, text messages, emails out of the blue. I got a text message Sunday morning that woke me up. And it was from a friend I hadn't talked to in a couple of years. And he had just watched one of my videos and wrote me a text how much it meant to him and have a great day. And at that moment, that was so important for me to wake up that way, to go to bed saying, I'm wondering about some things, and then to wake up, that confirmation. And so it's really important. We have all these confirmations that we have support, that we're cared about, that we're loved, that we're respected, things are getting better. We can't ignore those and focus on the problem, the challenges. We have to look at all those and use them to really prop ourselves up through this. And when people compliment us, accept that. When people call, accept that. When people offer help and assistance, accept it. You know, we're all prideful and we want to be self-made woman, a self-made man. The reality is there's no self-made anything.
No.
We all gain and learn from each other. And there's times where I help other people. There's times when other people help me, and that's good. So it's really embracing those things and letting people know if you need help, people will help you if they know about it. But if they don't know about it, it's really hard for them to help you. And so it was amazing. I remember posting, I didn't realize that people were afraid to go out of their house because of the pandemic, like literally afraid to be infected. So I remember posting on Facebook, hey, if you're afraid, it's okay. You can private message me and I'll go to the grocery store for you. I'll go get whatever you need and I'll bring it back and I'll set it on your porch. You know, like, you don't have to be embarrassed about that. It's okay. Okay. But, you know, private message me and let me know, or if you need something done that you're afraid to physically touch something or something, it's okay. What needs to be done, let me know. And then more people were doing that. And I thought that was really awesome. So, you know, we get through this as a community, not as individuals. And so we really need to embrace one another through all of it. And I remember I was in a store buying toilet paper last year because we were almost out. And I was driving around for 3 hours trying to find it. And I go to the hardware store and they had single rolls for sale. And I didn't, they were all sold out. So I'm standing there and I bought napkins. So I've got these napkins and I have one roll of paper towels, and I'm talking to a man in line and saying, yeah, you know, I really came here for toilet paper, but they were out. And he had 4 rolls of toilet paper and he gave me 2. A stranger. He gave me 2. And that is how we overcome this, right? Yeah. There's so much beauty in community, and I know there's challenges, but when we embrace the great things, then that allows us to overcome these things. And then as soon as we have an opportunity to help someone in any way, let's make sure we do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you rightfully said, I mean, what we were talking earlier about embracing fear, embracing the situation, embracing your experiences, embracing yourself. That is what's important, to go through even this crisis situation during the pandemic, actually, where you manage to actually embrace people's help as well. But at the same time, you would be able to give back. You know, if we don't embrace our situation, if we don't embrace ourselves, what is happening with us and what our current environment is, we wouldn't be able to evolve. We wouldn't be able to find a solution for that. I mean, my intake when last year lockdown happened was prior to the lockdown, and as I early mentioned, my brain works a bit differently. I don't know where it comes from, but it just works slightly differently. I started watching the news or observing the news, what was happening in China. And this was a lot prior to the actual lockdown, which had then happened in the Western world. It was around October, November time in 2018, and the situation was changing for them. They were in lockdown. The pandemic had come in that part of the world. But I guess for a lot of people in the Western world and the government as well, this situation was more at that time of such as Ebola, which didn't spread all over the world. It was just in a certain area. And because we're human beings, we become quite ignorant. We think if that doesn't affect us directly, we don't have to deal with that. So a lot of people haven't dealt with that, but something in my brain said at that time that something is not right. So because my grandmother is quite old school, she always stores like dry food. She always tells me, always have rations of at least 1 month worth at home. So that's not to say that I stockpile. It's just to say that certain things, if I buy like 1 pack, I would buy 2 packs. I always have a big pot of flour at home. I always have a big pot of rice at home. So all these necessary things which are there. So even if I didn't have to leave the house, could be of illness as well, I would have enough things to eat and cook and to deal with to survive. So that's what I started doing, is because I was watching the news and I thought something is changing, something is not right. I purchased a few boxes for the garage and I started storing a little more dry food, which I would usually do. So even in terms of toilet paper, instead of 1 pack, I didn't go mad or wild like others may have done with 10 packs or buying off the whole shelf. No, I bought, instead of 1 pack, I bought 2 packs. And that's how it accumulated over time. And when the actual lockdown happened, I didn't have to rush at all. It was, it was quite nice to see. It was horrible to see what was happening around, but I didn't have to be in that situation. So in return, what I was able to do is then to be able to help others around me who may not have had this forward-thinking process at that time. So that is exactly what it is. Whatever it is, you should embrace things. You should embrace your experiences. You should embrace your environment and see how you can make sense of that. What then adds to a good crisis management as well, to a healthy crisis management. We're coming back to the doctor or to the consultant where a person goes to, a person approaches to. If we as professionals would panic and not knowing what to do in our field of expertise, how's the client going to feel safe or well taken care of? So it's a very, very important factor in crisis management. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about being prepared and just having those things on hand. And I've read in the past that was important and kind of dismissed it because we've always had plenty and we've never had a situation like this. And then it became very clear that, hey, we need to be prepared for disruption. And so learning those lessons this time, when things normalized a bit, I remember things that I ran out of last time, like batteries. You couldn't get them. And so I made sure, the flashlights, different things in the house, new batteries, fresh batteries, but then I have some packs of batteries for backup in case there was another disruption in the supply chain, right? Different things like that. Like and we didn't run out of dog food, but we have a dog. Well, I didn't think about, what happens if, that supply chain gets disrupted. So then, hey, I've got some canned dog food set back now. And, so it was good to the last year in 2020 exposed all these gaps. And so then going about this past year saying, hey, just a little at a time, like you said, hey, here's some extra toilet paper, here's paper towels, here's some extra canned goods, right? I found these. And then if you look on the labels, it'll tell you that those things will be good for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So you can set them aside. And then over time, you have a nice little reserve there. So in case, now my diet might be a little bit bland at that time, but at the same time, you have some, you have some things that you can go to and get your nutrition and the vitamins you need and things like that. So those lessons have been gained through this. And then I think the biggest thing too, when it comes to our health, okay, there's so much fear around this, and I've spent so much time studying and researching all the data that I could find that's available on the pandemic, COVID, and making heads or tails of it. And so at the end of all my research, if you're in poor health and you contract this, you have problems.
Yeah.
And if you're in good health and you contract this, 99 point, not 100%, but 99.5, 6, 9, somewhere between 99.5 and 99.9, you're going to recover.
Yeah.
But if you have these comorbidities, right, existing health conditions that are tough, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, obesity, cancers, liver disease, kidney disease, you have those things going on, your immune system is being taxed. And so it doesn't have as much availability to fight this new infection. So that can be the straw that broke the camel's back if you contract COVID. And so on the CDC's website, it's somewhere between the average person that dies from COVID had somewhere on one point in the website, it said comorbidities average 2.6, which is huge.
Yeah.
Then on another side, I found at least 4 existing conditions that include comorbidities.
Yeah.
So we've really got to do what we can to improve our health and not just sit back and totally depend on the vaccine.
Yeah.
We need to put our body in a position where it can fight. And that gives us, we can rest easier that way. And I know there's these anomalies where someone that appeared to be in very good health has died, but those are really, really rare. And it's 94% of the deaths were people that were in really bad conditions. So that to me is reassuring that I'm focusing on that. And during this pandemic, I've heard that, people maybe didn't exercise as much or maybe didn't focus on their diet as well as they should. This is the time to really focus on your diet, on your exercise, your nutrition, your sleep, these things that we know boost your immune system.
Yeah.
And, building your microbiome, which a lot of people, if you don't know what your microbiome is, that means you're not managing it well.
Yeah. Which is the gut bacteria.
Right. 60% of our immune system is that. So if we're not managing that well, then we're not bringing our full immune system to the fight. So thankfully, I ran into a doctor 4 years ago that educated me on microbiome. So I've spent the last 4 years building mine up. And so, and I did contract COVID in 2019.
Right.
I didn't feel well for about 2 days. I still worked those 2 days remotely, but I took a nap, like a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day because I'm very tired. And then I lost my sense of smell for a week. That was it. So I had achy, I had no chest congestion, I was just achy and very tired for 2 days, and I tested positive. And so I believe that that's a big contribution of my immune system.
Mm.
So
yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's very beautifully said. A lot of people actually misunderstand or misconceive these kind of things, because nowadays what it is, I guess, we are creatures of habits, and we have become very, very comfortable. A lot of people have become very, very comfortable in where they are. And they don't know how to actually go back to basics. I mean, like I was explaining how my grandmother lives and how I've just adopted this way. I see a lot of people even now, instead of actually focusing on how we can make ourselves better to fight all these things internally, physically, emotionally, psychologically as well. They have now leaned more towards takeaways. I mean, takeaways are booming. But what we're forgetting actually is that instead of encouraging ourselves to become better, to increase our immune system, to deal with these crises, ongoing crises, which will be coming again and again, we are now focused on other comfort things, which we think are just making life easier. But in fact, they will be making life more difficult because we become useless. A lot of people don't even know how to cut an onion or how to cook, or just to make something up from scratch from 5 different ingredients which you may have at home. People don't know what to do with these things. I mean, I make, for instance, if I can't buy bread, which was the case here in the UK, and I'm sure in America there were a few cases as well where you couldn't buy bread anymore because everyone just bought off the shelves, or there were problems in deliveries. I mean, I have a big pot of wholemeal flour all the time at home, and I know how to make my own flatbread, roti. So where others may have to maybe struggle in how to make these things, you just look up. I mean, YouTube was always working, even if you don't know how to make these things. Just watch a 5 minutes clip and make it. It doesn't take long, and it's nutritious as well because you know what you're putting in. It will help your immune system. It will provide you with energy, and it will provide you with all the goodness which you cannot receive from all the toxic elements which are included in these takeaway products. But it's the understanding of people which we have to implement, and it's very difficult at times when, in your line of work or Inderjit's line of work or my line of work, when we're trying to implement that in people's minds, that he is back. There we go. So it's the understanding of that to come to conclusion that in order to be able to fight against that, you have to make sure your foundation is right. Yes. And that's where it goes wrong. Hello back. Hello, stranger. Where have you disappeared?
I went to the Mars and came back.
I thought you just had a sneaky peek to the Venus.
Some small technical glitch. Yeah. I sent you a message immediately. Yes, I hope you got it.
Yes, I did. It took a bit of time for you to send me the message. It didn't come immediately.
Okay, so how are things going on? I'm sorry I missed all that wisdom.
That's okay. We were still talking about fear, how you manage these things, and how you must embrace fear even in your personal life, because we're talking now about, instead of going into the corporate life, on a human level, how people, especially during the pandemic, how they're actually panicking, don't know how to do. And Dr. Charlie mentioned rightfully that what we are learning about these things is you have to create your own foundation. You have to increase your immune system. You have to be able to fight against these things from your own work, from your own being, what you actually put in before you actually expect something else.
Yes, I think we when we started and until what time we have reached now, you structured it so very well. I mean, first of all, you mentioned about, like we were talking of fear, then our own coping mechanism, which is very, very important. You see, because fear, it hits you differently, it hits me differently. And now the question is, what are those ways where we can get over this situation? How to get rid of fear. I mean, everybody knows fear is all about. So I personally think in a situation like pandemic, there are 3 ways one could go around. One is seek help. For any crisis, we are not talking about pandemic. You see, we are very shy of reaching qualified people who understand mental health, open out to them that I have a fear psychosis of this situation. We all have, let's admit it, at work or in our own personal lives. So first is to seek help, be frank open it out. I mean, there's no hiding about it. Dr. Charlie also mentioned about traumas that he has gone through. You once mentioned, and I guess we don't admit, but I think we have all gone through it in some way or the other. And then every time our coping mechanism used to either nullify it or get over it, or we live with all that. And that's why those negative feelings some people are carrying all along. The most important thing to cope up is first to understand yourself. Self-awareness is very important. No point living in a world of, utopian kind of a world, that all is well, I'm fine, I'm accepted by people, I have done books, I've written articles. Dr. Charlie has done wonders in the corporate world. You have done in your own profession so very well. But what is inside us? What are our weaknesses? Strengths we all know. And our good friends always reinforce us by telling, oh, you're good, you're doing well, and all that stuff. So we get this external influence. But what is having inside us, that is to be understood. If we are not able to sit and analyze ourselves, we seek help, talk to our well-wishers, not necessarily a doctor. If best would be to go to a qualified person who knows, who understands anxieties and gives you remedial solutions. But if you can't do that for some reason, then you sit yourself, be honest to yourself, make a self-appraisal. Find out, like we always rejoice our strengths, we know our weaknesses and we know our opportunities. The moment I know my opportunities, then I know to attain those opportunities or make the best of it, I must correct myself. And in one of my latest articles, I'm sure you might have seen, it is called Self, Be Your Own, or self-love, actually, self-love and be your own. The idea was to say that if you sit and analyze yourself, accept yourself the way you are, with the determination that you will make yourself better. So tomorrow would be a better version of myself than what I am today. That should be my goal. So if I am 5 on a scale of 10, my attempt should be to be 6 on the scale of 10, then 7 on the scale of 10. Okay. So if that driving force and the fire is within me, and knowing well such beautiful examples, which I reflected in my book, that when a caterpillar, an ugly looking caterpillar, when she's dying, it turns into a beautiful butterfly. So who are we to say that this is the end of the world? Nothing can happen. No, everything can happen as long as you make sure that you will make it happen. I mean, that's important. So, when we have such beautiful examples from nature, forest fires, for instance, in California or in Australia, everything got devastated. But then the nature is strong. It came out again. Again, it gets green. Not bothered about what will happen after 2 years. It may again burn. I mean, I live in California a lot. So I've seen, from our homes, we could see the fire on the hilltops. But then you accept it that this is happening. Now let's find out. And again, our aviation came to the rescue. We have these aircraft which are called water bombs. So we carry millions of gallons of water, go and throw over the burning forests. And you see, there is always a way out that to combat fear, that fear of fear. Actually, it's fear of fear. Even the word fear has become a fearful word to us. So you see, the whole idea is to meet people like yourselves, people who have seen trauma, people who have experienced trauma. And one more important thing is to realize that trauma, the gravity of the trauma, find out ways, get over it. So I don't know what all I missed in the last 10 minutes, but I'm sure that the discussions must be very good. And we will all benefit out of it, because many a times in such innocent ways we open out our hearts, which we generally don't in our formal meetings. So when we will see that, oh my God, this is what I said that we should admit our shortcomings, which we generally don't at workplace and all. We all tend to look like tigers, and because we are leaders, and we feel that, oh, we are the role models. So let us be like the best version in this world, like God's gift. But we forget that everybody is a God's gift on this earth. Really, I mean, this is what somebody asked me in a few days back when discussing that article about loving oneself. So they said, is it not being selfish? So I categorically said, no, it's not being selfish. If you don't love yourself, whom would you love? You're not capable of loving anybody if you don't love your own self. Okay? I have to first like myself, have a self-esteem. I don't want to be proud, but self-pride has to be there. Okay? We should know our worth. We should know our worth and say, okay, and that's where the law of attraction comes. If I think I am capable, I'm sure my friend Charlie, Dr. Charlie will feel, yes, he's capable. And we will force Shafaq to admit that we are both capable. So,
absolutely, absolutely. I'm sitting here with two handsome young men, and I'm emphasizing on handsome young man.
This you should tell us every day. Send us a message every day in the morning as a reminder. We know we are. We know we are, but it would further reinforce our views on ourselves. You see, we are all handsome. Handsome is what handsome does. I think in school and colleges we have learned all that, but we forgot in this, rat race that, okay, I have to be one up. I have 60 articles, I want to make it 61, then I want to make it 68, then I will write another book. So what? Who cares? Libraries are loaded with books. What does it matter? Yes, I take pride in Shafaq having done some work. You may take pride in Dr. Charlie having done some work. That is a good kick for all of us. So it's very, very important. I'm compensating for those last 10 minutes which I missed. So I'm going on and on. So the point is that we should know our worth. We should love ourselves, because if our cups are not full, how can we offer to somebody else? So we have to be full of love, and it is not being self-conceited. No, that is negative. Don't think that, oh, I'm the last word on this earth. No, you are not. I mean, Swami Vivekananda, a great guru of Indian philosophy, said that best thing to go out in the air, in the open, outside, look at the sky, and then you know what you are. I mean, look at the big universe. We are like tiny dots, but each dot makes the universe.
Yeah.
So we should appreciate our position on this planet. And we should love ourselves to the extent possible. Make others love us, because it's very infectious. If I love myself, I'm sure some more people would love me. And if you love yourself, people, I would start loving you. I look at the aura around your face and say, this is one person I can trust. This is one person I can open my heart to, because they will see the honesty on my face, maybe. Okay. But if I'm wearing a mask all the time, then a person is not sure whether to open out to me, give me his or her innermost feelings, which he's been cherishing all his life. Why do people come and open out to you as a professional when you are a psychotherapist? People open out because they know that, one, you are deep, you have enough space in your heart to absorb a lot of things. What you will give would be very, very positive. And you will always try to make him better, a better person, as long as he has faith in you and he has the patience to listen and follow. I mean, you can't overnight transform people. And we are not on that mission of transforming the world. No. So even if you can, I won't even say transform, if you can take some people along the way we are thinking, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And it's infectious. You two people come along with you, then 4, then 6, then 8, and it multiplies.
Absolutely.
It's got a rippling effect. So
I mean, I describe myself as a facilitator, and I'm sure both of you in your own way, in your business world, Dr. Charlie and Inderjit in your aviation world. It's about facilitating people's pathways. It's about facilitating these roles, these different crises, these different challenges as such. Because what we cannot do, and you've described that both of you have actually spoken very similar in your own niche, even when you was away, Inderjit. Dr. Charlie was talking about very similar things about accepting health, embracing these things and so on, and looking after yourself to be able to look after somebody else as well. That if we don't embrace these things, we cannot actually expect to be sustainable for our environment. It's just not possible at all. And there's a difference between self-love and being self-obsessed. That's what people must understand. These are two different terms. One is self-love, which is crucial to our existence. it's life. Whether you believe in God or the higher power or the Almighty or energy, whatever you want to believe in, it teaches us to love ourselves and then to reflect this love to our environment. It does not happen in any other form or way. It can only happen this way. And there's another way of being self-obsessed, which is the other extreme then, where we don't actually look at our environment. We just feel we are entitled for things.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that can be a personality disorder as well. As you know, my ex-partner was a narcissist, or is a narcissist.
Yes.
So having this kind of dysfunction in your mind can actually become very unhealthy then. But it does not actually make you in any way better. It does not make you evolve in any way. It's almost always a destruction. It's always something which is holding you back to evolve, to progress, not just for the other person or for your environment, but for yourself as well, because you're always stuck in that little bubble of misperception, of misbelief, and cannot come out of that. And that's another form of fear, because most people actually have really this fear. Instead of embracing and understanding fear, they are in a bubble, wherever we are part of a tribe, part of a culture, part of an upbringing, part of whatever we might want to be. We don't want to step out to the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because it comes then to familiarity, where I wanted to quickly go before we end the session soon. We're almost coming to 2 hours. I'm actually enjoying that. I could carry on.
That's a long time. That's a very, very long time.
Absolutely. But what I wanted to say is actually stepping out of to the unknown, and then creating something magical, something new, changing your perspective to what you know. Changing your perspective to how you've been brought up, changing your perspective to your culture, to your memories, to everything, and looking at that in a very different viewpoint. What are your thought process, both of you actually, in this way? Because I think there's very few leaders out in this world, and I'm talking about all form of roles, not just one specific role, all form of roles. There's very few people out there who look at the perspective in a very different way and are willing to change their perspective, to see, to analyze and eliminate these unhealthy things. And they may be out of habit, or out of, we don't want to maybe be disloyal to someone or disappoint someone, but sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind.
Yes.
Because you have to face the truth. You know, I come from an Asian household, which is very, very, my family is very, very orthodox, but at the same time, they're very highly educated, but very, very orthodox. And I disagree with a lot of mindset. And as you will know, a lot of Asians can be quite prejudiced towards color as well, and different other things, you know, very, very fearful of other cultures to embrace them, for instance. So all these things I have neglected and I have rejected. And I know my family doesn't agree with that, but neither do I. I don't agree with their understanding. I don't agree with how much ever they've been carrying through their generations. I'm not disrespectful towards them, but I don't agree with these things. And yes, that's what I wanted to put across as our last question as such, before we go into the audience who have a few questions as well.
I'm just tempted, Shafaq, to share one small thing which I actually saw. There's this beautiful sculpture, okay? What I'm trying to point out is that we don't have to look outside at all. We are already a complete man inside. Dr. Charlie and me both are complete men. You are a woman of substance. Let's take it for granted. So there was this beautiful sculpture of something, like it was a bird, and then there was a person kneeling on his knees and praying. So the person told the sculptor, how could you possibly make such a beautiful sculpture? He says, no, that was a big piece of stone. I just carved out the extra stone form all around and the sculpture emerged. So his way of looking at it, that the sculpture was already there. it is not that he made it, he just chipped off the extra stone around. You know how the sculptors work. They chip off stone and then something suddenly emerges out of it. It could be flower, it could be a bird, it could be a phoenix bird, or it could be a beautiful butterfly, or it could be a woman and a man, or whatever. But it was there, he just took out the extra stone. So for us to say, I have to read books, I have to go to university, and I have to discover my man inside me, that man is already there. Take out that extra baggage that you're carrying around you. Like we go out, run around to shed off some kilos, we should shed off this extra stuff that is hanging around us, hanging around our mind. So that is that extra stone. The moment you pull out that extra stone, the sculpture, that beautiful human being will appear. So I think that was the essence of life to me, looking at that story. I don't know whether it's correct or not, but it's a real life situation. Aren't we all the time, going around with negativity? I missed 5 minutes of this discussion, or there was a little glitch. That's not the end of life. It came back because I was to be back with you. So I have learned a lesson that there's no need to panic. The world goes on. I don't think you missed me. I say that you missed me. I like it. But the world goes on. I mean, if one person goes, there's always another one who will fill in the gap. So there are so many things which we learn like that, which is not there in the books. It's not there in the colleges and schools. That schools and colleges makes our mind ripe to be receptive, to be humble enough to learn to another point of view. Otherwise, we would think, oh, okay, I'm the end all. No, that's not the question. But then the life is the biggest university. Life is the biggest teacher to me. I think life, my friends, like Dr. Charlie, yourself, what you say, the feedback we'll get from the audience, that is real life. That's what we learned in Oxford or in other universities, that was fine as far as we were there. Now we are in real world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully said. Absolutely. That's what it is. And it falls back into crisis management again, because if we don't change our perspective to the right way, how are we dealing with these kind of situations? A lot of people hide away, like a lot of my family hides away, because they feel by hiding away, we can actually pass this situation. You may pass this situation this time, but you may not be able to pass this generally a challenge all the time, because you wouldn't have the opportunity to hide away all the time. You're not learning from that. You're not evolving from that.
Yes. We are human beings. We are not ostrich that we bury our head and say, oh, this will go away, or we shut our eyes and say, okay, I don't see, so it's not happening. Let's open our eyes and see things happening, find a solution for that. I mean, that's what we are meant for.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your intake, Dr. Charlie, about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's, we're created for this. And I just look at my entire life and know that I was being prepared for this time right now, this opportunity to help others and to be in a leadership role and to thrive and show other people how to do it and be an encouragement to others. So that's how I see it. I agree 100% with what you've said and Inderjit.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. It's so lovely having you. As I said, I could actually carry on, but we're almost coming to 2 hours now. Yes. And I'm just going through some of the comments. We have comments like powerful conversation. What else? Absolutely resonate with you, Dr. Charlie. When we make enemy our friend, our enemy is destroyed. Yes. Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Yes, very, very much so. Then your fear should not define you. Embracing the fear is the best way to cross this fire and of heavy emotions. Love it, Shafaq. Oh, this was for me. Thank you very much, Diksha. Fear is a product of our minds. Facing our fears dispels them. Wise words, Inderjit, which most probably your last few things which you were mentioning. Then there was a question here. Let me see. What are the best ways to keep crisis and turbulences at bay to some extent? I think we answered that question, but would you like to just quickly elaborate on that?
Whom are you asking?
So the question here was, which one of our viewers presented, Anuja, is what are the best ways to keep crisis and turbulences at bay? So how to manage them to some extent.
It reminds me of there's a famous Will Smith quote, and he said, "Stay ready so you don't have to get ready." Right. And so just understand that your whole life is preparation, and we've learned things through this trial and through this crisis that are going to help us, because this is not the last this is not going to be the last challenge that we face.
No.
For sure. And so just embracing those lessons and building upon them.
Yes.
That's very well said. Very good. I hope that answered the question. Would you like to say something as well, Inderjit?
Oh, I agree with Dr. Charlie that, you see, again, awareness, knowing the environment. And if you don't know the challenge, how would you keep it at abeyance?
Yeah.
It would just happen to you. But if I know that these things are coming, going back to our viruses, they were always there. It's not like it's come as a surprise, but probably we did not take it very seriously. We were always dealing with like a firefighting event. Okay, it's happened. Let's face it, struggle, come out of it, and then forget about it. No, that's not the way. But at least this time, with the severity that it has come and the widely it's spread around the world, the earlier ones were localized, some happening in South Africa, something was happening in Mexico, something was happening in China, but this thing went all over the world and in no time actually. So this has provoked people to come out with solutions, a long-term solution, not just band-aid and quick fix solutions like, wearing a mask, and all that is very important. I'm fully subscribed to all those things which the World Health Organization is insisting on. But like Dr. Charlie mentioned, that from one state to another state, here you're wearing a mask, there you're not wearing a mask, and within the time span of 30 minutes. Now, why have this ambiguity?
Yeah.
What is the guarantee that you are not carrying something and going there as a gift, or are bringing it back when you come back just because of not wearing a mask?
Yeah.
So, there are certain things that we ought to accept. Okay, the world is suggesting that take these protocols, take these precautions. And I think we should go along with it rather than contradicting. Do bigger jobs than to wear or not to wear. That's not the question.
Yeah.
Wearing a mask had become such a big deal in the United States at one time in the past administration.
Yeah.
Should we wear or should we not wear? That was being debated all along.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, when would we prepare the vaccine? Okay, when would we have all these scientists put together, give them funds to do? I mean, the main question was what to do as far as masks are concerned. So you see, when you're looking for stones and pebbles, you miss the gems. So why not we pick the gems? I mean, why waste time on those trivial matters which don't matter?
Absolutely.
And especially in high places where the world is looking upon you, you are the leader. Okay, so set good precedents that yes, it's not like herd mentality that if the world is wearing a mask, I will. It is in fact, if the world is doing, I will not do because I am somebody special. I am God's gift on this earth. I'm not referring to the president with due respects to him. But the important thing is that, be your own doesn't mean that you push your agenda all the time.
Yeah.
Agenda is set by the people. You are there to serve the world. You are there to serve the people. So go by what the people's choice is. I mean, this is what leaders should do. You see, our problem is that when we reach in high places, or with God's grace, you reach to a position where you can command. Okay, because in a large army, you have all ranks, but still you need somebody as a general to guide you. Okay, so when you are in that position, set examples as a leader to be a team player, be a part of the team, yet be a little above because they are looking upon you for guidance, for advice, or, putting you onto the right path, because he knows better. Otherwise, he won't be there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Beautifully said, both of you. I would resonate in general about, because I believe in risk management as well. Sometimes all these things incorporated, be mindful of things, still try to follow certain guidelines, but at the same time, step into the unknown, see what happens.
Yes.
And then deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
As accordingly, how is it going along? Because what we often forget is, as child, why are we born? And these are innate qualities. We are born to adapt to things. We are born to be flexible to things. A toddler starts walking, starts listening, starts talking, starts jumping, all these different things they're trying out. They're trying out how far they can go, how far they can push boundaries of their parents. This is not taught by a parent himself. This is not taught by the environment.
That's curiosity, which is also very important to train.
Absolutely. And that's what we lose.
Yeah. You discover because you are curious. You find something which you cannot do. Okay, like you mentioned, a toddler. A toddler sees people around walking, but he or she feels helpless. She's just sitting there all the time. Then one day, suddenly that urge comes that why can't I be like them? I guess, it's all my guess, that the motivation comes when the toddler looks around, everybody walking here and there, and that toddler is just sitting there doing nothing. So from something within tells her to get up and start 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and there you are. In a month's time, you find the toddler running around.
Absolutely. So, if you don't try, you wouldn't know.
One of the important virtues for a leader should be that he should not be content with what all he knows. He should be curious to know more about it. I'm learning now hypnosity.
Right.
How to hypnotize people like you do. So this is what my intention is to learn next, though it's nothing to do with my subject. But you see, again, trying to understand people is important to hypnotize them first. Okay.
You mean you want to know my secret, what I do?
Yes, I know. Sometimes I feel scared looking into your eyes. I may get hypnotized. No, I won't mind. I won't mind that.
You know what?
Dr.
So many
Charlie,
people...
you have to say something on that. You are smiling and you have your last word on it.
I think Dr. Charlie lost for words. I have received a lot of people's
what, Dr.
commenting on that.
No, Dr. Charlie is like Sir Winston Churchill. You remember? His beautiful book called In Silence I Speak. So he has said so many things to you quietly, Shafaq, which we don't know.
I can see that on his face. Yes, both of you.
Yes. He's already conveyed to you. I don't know what, but something very
But it's actually fascinating coming, to your point about my eyes. Yes, a lot of people have mentioned to me also on social media, don't look into her eyes. She will hypnotize you. Maybe that's the secret. You never know. I won't tell anyone. Don't worry. It remains a secret. But no, wonderful. Thank you so much
Thank you
being in my show. You've been such extraordinary personalities, and it's been such a interesting, extraordinary talk, and all relays around crisis management. What people are forgetting, that all these different elements we're talking about, wherever on a personal level, wherever on a business level, corporate level, in your aviation, in your corporate world, it's all got to do with crisis management. And it's how we manage situations, how we manage ourselves.
Yes.
That's what we reflect to our environment. That's what we reflect to our other people. That's what we reflect in our life as a life philosophy. So thank you very much for joining in, and thank you very much for our viewers as well in coming on and taking such interest in that. I will be, this episode is recorded as well. So anybody who wants to, listen back to that and watch back to that is welcome to do so on my channel, Psych Shafak. If you subscribe to that, you will be able to be notified as well with other podcasts. But I'm hoping people can take out a lot of information from this interesting talk and maybe apply that towards the current situation, especially the current situation during this pandemic, because people do need to have a light of hope, some form of guidance they're looking for, a lot of people, where they can just, be content again, be able to look forward again from one point to another, how to move, how to be able to manage all these things.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. Dr. Charlie, so early in the morning, and Inderjit Singh so late in the night. I really appreciate that. And I might be setting up a part 3, I know.
Yes.
A different topic. So thank you very much. It was wonderful, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you, Shafak. Thank you very much. And thank you for this lovely audience who came along and sat with us for 2 hours.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a very long time.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed you both.
You. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And as I said, I will be sharing it, so feel free to share it or do whatever you would like to do. Yes, have a wonderful day, wonderful night, and yes, love to you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless you.
To my 2 young, handsome gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
you. See you, Dr. Charlie. Good to see you again.
Pleasure, Inderjit. Pleasure. We'll talk soon.
Sure, we will.
All right.
Bye-bye. Take care. God bless.